There's a simple country smile on the face of a new city girl. She says the roof it leaks and the rent is high. There's no better place in the world. It's a long way down, back to the bottom.
Dr. Jon Finn, I am so excited that you're here with me today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join today. Very excited. I do have Miss Willie here, who's also joining and wasn't technically invited, but here she is. I think she's interested in hearing what you have to say as well. So really quickly, I just want to let the audience know that I had the great pleasure of sitting on a panel where Jon and I were both invited, and Jon really gave us some super fantastic insight on as to the book that he just wrote, and that's what we're here to talk about. So, Jon, I'm not going to speak too much because I'm super excited to hear, sort of why this book, a little bit of your background story, and really sort of humanize what this information is all about. So feel free to start wherever feels comfortable for you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Gina. Yeah, so we were on, I gave a talk to a group who are involved in about my new book, Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution. My background's performance psychology. I've got 3 psychology-related degrees, including a PhD. And we've been working with businesses for a long time, for over 25 years, helping people to build better habits so they can be at their best more often, and help not just individuals, but also teams and leaders, and helping organizations to build high-performing cultures. We know that the key to doing that is to help people to automate what we call helpful super habits, both helping people to think in a way that is most helpful for them, but also to do the things every day that are most helpful for them, like sleeping properly and managing stress well and being focused and all those things that help us to be healthy, happy, and at our best. And then, like everybody else in the last few years, we've seen the emergence of AI. I particularly got interested in neural network AI when I picked up a book by a New York Times journalist called Cade Metz, who wrote a book called The Genius Makers. And the protagonist of that is Geoffrey Hinton, who's the London-born academic who's kind of pioneered the modern use of neural network AI. And I got hooked in because neural network AI is designed to work like brains, and I know a lot about brains. I wrote a best-selling book called The Habit Mechanic about 3 years ago, showing people how their brains actually work and how they can get the most out of them. And then I just got down the AI rabbit hole, and I think it's a profound technology that can actually help humans to do all the things that we'd like to do. But it's scary. And I wanted to write a book that helped people to, first of all, better understand themselves and better understand the most complex technology in the known universe that exists inside their heads. It's called their brains. And by understanding our brains, then we can actually understand AI, both the agentic AI and the LLMs. And we can understand what it can do, what it can't do, and how we can use it if we wish to make our life easier. And that's what Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution is about. And I believe that what I would call brain state intelligence will become the number one skill, the number one set of understanding that's going to help people to be healthy, happy, and at their best as we accelerate forward into the AI era, which we are doing at a rate that nobody predicted, just sort of 6 months up, well, we are 9 months into the 2025, we're almost like 5 years into the future compared to what was being predicted at the start of this year alone.
Yes.
So yeah, things are moving fast. That's a quick summary of me and what I do.
Yeah, it's definitely moving fast. And so just to take a few steps back, help folks understand, because as I think we've heard right through the panel we were both on, so to speak, and then as we read and interact in our communities, there's been a real fear created around AI, just generically speaking, right? For the public, for the public in general, the worker. Not going to dive into all of that, but what I'd love to be able to do during our conversation here today is really to help people understand the approach. Like, we use a lot of acronyms, but let's take a step back into, the LLM, the agentic AI, and let's translate that to, I'm just regular, Joe Schmo on the street trying to really understand, gosh, this AI stuff really scares me. How would I even begin to incorporate this into this sort of neural training or this brain stuff? What does it mean to the regular person?
Yeah, and this is why brain state intelligence is so important. So our brain is the most complex thing in the known universe, but essentially it's like a big battery. And in every 24-hour period, it only has so much charge. And your primary recharge function is high quality sleep, which we know people struggle to get.
Yes.
But so in every 24-hour period, and we can understand AI better by understanding our own brains, because AI is designed to work like our brains. So imagine your brain is like a big battery and it only has so much charge, so much energy in every 24-hour period. I mean, it literally is like a battery. It runs on chemicals and electricity. And it operates in every 24-hour period broadly in 3 charge states. You have the recharge state, which includes sleep. You can also do non-sleep recharge activities, like switching off, relaxing. Some forms of exercise for some people are recharging. We have medium charge brain state, where we're pretty much on autopilot, and people talk about doing busy work.
Right.
And we spend actually most of our working hours doing this because it's very, very brain friendly, because our brain likes to do things that don't cost it a lot of energy, but makes you feel like you're making some progress. That could be working through your email list. It could be doing some chores around the home. It's anything which doesn't really cost you too much mental energy, but there's a pace and a rhythm to it.
Right.
And increasingly our lives have been filled with busy work because we're surrounded by technology and it can fire things at us really rapidly. So we find ourselves spending all day long, getting through the emails or the WhatsApp messages or the LinkedIn messages, just the busy things, endlessly going, feeling like I'm doing lots but never actually getting anything done. That's the medium charge work. And then the final brain state is the high charge brain state. This is where we're really thinking hard.
Yes.
So where we're doing our focused work, our strategic thinking. It's the kind of work that burns, the front of your forehead if you do it for too long, but it's where you do your best thinking. And we can think of different tasks that we do across each of those brain states. So recharge, everyone's common task is sleeping.
Exactly.
Eating for some people might be relaxing, just having a conversation, playing with the kids, whatever it is.
Right.
And then we can think of tasks that we do in our medium charge brain states, like checking emails, just doing fairly routine administration type tasks. And then the same for high charge. We can think of the kind of tasks that we need to complete in our high charge brain state. Might be writing a book. It might be, or certain elements of writing a book. It might be creating a new product or solving a new complex problem that's emerged or writing a new proposal for a new client, working out a new policy. And by understanding what kind of tasks you do in the medium charge brain states and the high charge brain states, you can then start to begin to understand what kind of tasks AI can help you to achieve. And broadly speaking, AI, we can put it into two brackets. One is agentic AI.
Exactly.
It's not a particularly helpful word, but it's
Right.
like an agent doing something, just a highly specialist
Right.
bot that's just trained to do one thing. One good example, because lots of people have these now, are calendar booking apps.
Yes.
So instead of going back and forth with someone about when might you be able to do a podcast, you can just say, these are the slots I have available. You can pick the time. It then automatically sends you the invitation and the reminders and so on and so forth. So it's the automation of what used to be a manual process. And essentially, agentic AI now is getting very, very powerful to the point where you can say, order me my shopping from this supermarket, and it'll be able to do it and pay for your goods as well, because it has access to your credit card if you want to, go there. Increasingly, we see now bots that can, agentic AI that can actually go into your emails, answer simple emails, flag priority emails, or go into your calendar and tell you what is most pressing for you today, etc.
Right.
So most things you use your medium charge brain states to do, there will be an agentic AI available, or it will be available soon, where you can, if not partially outsource those tasks, completely outsource the tasks. The large language models, which are, you said no brands, so I don't want to say the brand names, but you can
Right.
say them if you want.
Which is the acronym LLM. So I'm just trying to take people through,
Yes,
if you
large
hear
language
or
model.
read and right. So we just talked about agentic, and now we're talking about the LLM, the large language
LLM.
model. Yep.
Which is slightly more, I think, intangible. So let me say the names, which are becoming synonymous, and you can edit them out if you want. So ChatGTP is an LLM. Claude is an LLM.
Right.
Google have one, but I can't think what it's called. Gemini, I think. So, and actually, one function is a bit like the Google search, where you put something into it, and instead of going to different websites, it does all that work for you.
Right.
But LLMs, they're like consultants that you can work with on the complex problems that you're trying to solve in your life, on the high charge tasks that you're trying to get done. And so when I wrote The Habit Mechanic, my first book, if I wanted to help with restructuring an idea or restructuring some of the sentences of the paragraphs, I would send it to an editor. When I wrote Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, I didn't need to send it to an editor as much. I could say to one of the LLMs, give me 3 different versions of this sentence.
Exactly.
Here's an idea I'm working on. Just give me 5 variations of it. So literally, it's like an evergreen, or ever present, always on, 24/7, like almost like Swiss Army knife consultant that knows lots of different things, and it costs pennies, and actually you can access a lot of it for free.
Right.
So instead of it all being coming down to your own brain power or having to hire someone else's brain, like you might hire an editor when you're writing a book, you can work with the LLM. That's what it is. So what we're seeing is, like we've previously seen, the automation of physical tasks. So right now, one of the things that I like to do to switch off is rewatch things I've seen before, because you don't have to,
Right.
be too hot on all the details. It's just kind of in the background and your mind can drift and stuff. So one of the things I'm watching at the moment is The Wire, which is a
Oh,
very
nice.
famous drama. And
Yes.
it's season 2, where they're looking at the docks in Baltimore. And there's a lot of narrative around how the docks are being automated and how there used to be 10 times as many people working in the docks. But slowly but surely, those human beings have been replaced by machines.
Right.
And actually, we see that. So where I live in the north of England, where the Industrial Revolution started,
Right.
and you'll see it in pockets of the US as well, and the other parts of the world where you're moving beyond those traditional industries, that either the industries have disappeared because they've partially been outsourced, but equally they just need less humans to do the work. But actually, a lot of those people now have been moved into office-based jobs.
Right.
Could be call centers, could be banks. But what's now happening with neural network AI is the kind of work that you do in a call center, you do in a bank, is also being automated. And if you just think of also something like a bank, already large swathes of what is done in a bank has already been automated before we were talking about AI, because most of us have a bank in our pockets on an app. You don't have to physically go into the branch anymore. So although there's been a lot of noise around neural network AI over the last few years, if you actually think about our day-to-day lives, huge swathes of what used to take teams of people to deliver have been automated. We're doing this podcast now online in different parts of the world. We don't have a team of engineers. We don't have a fancy studio because the tech is so good. So yeah, that's a long answer to quite a short question, but I hope that gives some context.
Yeah, no, and I think the context is very, very important, because there are so many folks very confused about what is really happening in the macro picture. And going beneath the surface here with us is really trying to unpack, especially some of these more complicated things, if you will, to really help, folks understand, hey, okay, this is really what this is all about, right? Like, forget the hype, forget the whatever you're hearing, because depending on what you're thinking, it may or may not be true. But the bottom line is, from the source, here's what this really means. And today, I know, just to take another step back, what struck me, and I've kind of been swimming in these waters for quite some time, quite frankly, when I, heard what you had to say, took a peek at the book, etc., I was like, I love this, because to me anyway, and it still may not make sense to other people. I mean, we all see things differently, but I think to the masses, this makes a lot of sense. And just really again, we try to talk a lot about common sense here on the show, but it's like, from a common sensible standpoint, like, how does this actually relate to the brain and interact or not with AI and the different types of AI, right? Because a lot of people don't know what these things mean. And so I love the way that you take the book kind of takes us through that and what it really means. And especially with all these acronyms, a lot of folks out there, who are not swimming in the same waters that maybe you and I are, they don't understand what it means.
Yeah, well, I can tackle one of those head on, the word prompts. Again, because this language emerges out of tech folk, and when the AI was less sophisticated, you had to be very, very skilled in getting it to do what you wanted it to do. But now the LLMs are probably the most sophisticated understanders of human language on the planet, and they can speak every language. So what a prompt really means is what you're asking the AI to do, and you ask it to do whatever you want it to do in the same way you'd ask a human to do that. So you have to be clear with your instructions, but it's just saying, this is what I want you to do. And if it doesn't quite do what you want it to do, then you say it in a slightly different way. So again, I think humanizing, to use your language, how we work with these technologies, and the way that we're seeing it is that businesses are making a transition from teams of humans to teams of humans working with AI. In the same way in the docks in Baltimore and The Wire, they were making a transition from teams of humans to teams of humans working with manual labor technologies, from cranes to forklift trucks, to everything else that they need to do their jobs efficiently and effectively. And the key thing for humans is, one, if we're going to thrive in the AI era, we need to understand how to use the AI really well.
Right.
It is simple, but it's very powerful. It's a bit like, to an extent, driving a car is quite simple, but getting the most out of a Formula One car is quite complex. And we get good at using the AI better by using it and testing it and just making it part of what we do every day. So some people are using the AI really well and they're getting loads out of it and it's making them go really fast. And we think of it as like a snowmobile helping you go up the mountain faster.
Right.
But others are not. So we first of all need to learn how to use it really well. But then secondly, we need to get really good at doing the kind of thinking and the kind of work that AI can't do, because it isn't going to replace very specific aspects of what humans contribute to the workplace. If we get it right, it will actually free us up to do the kind of thinking and the kind of work that we really enjoy doing and that make us feel good about ourselves at the end of the day. And that's the high charge, high impact thinking and doing that allows us to move forwards and make progress.
Right.
And also, it allows us, if we get this right, it frees up time for us so we can have better quality sleep, better quality downtime. So I think, and one of the reasons I wrote Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution is because I genuinely think this technology can be a huge plus for humanity, but only if we get it right. So to make that happen, we need more and more people to understand it, so that in an organization, it's not just coming down from the top. This is what tool we're going to use. This is what we're going to do. We need a grassroots movement as well, who are learning about the tech, and they're saying, well, I've done this and this works, and I've tried this and this works. And then when the two meet together, you should get something really powerful.
Yes. And I think that's the other thing that really struck me too during the panel was instead of sort of this fear-based, holy cow, AI is taking everyone's job away, like doom and gloom, hearing you say, as we move through and understand how the brain works and how we can most effectively partner with AI, that in fact, it does free us up to do, and these are my words, not yours, the critical thinking, right? The thinking that I think ideally we would like to do in whatever business, trade, etc., that we're in, because AI is sort of inevitable, right? And this is one of the things that I wanted to really kind of jump into with you too, is somebody's watching this and says, okay, this all sounds great, but like, how does this make sense, Jon? Like, help us understand, how is AI going to free me up when they're telling me that, it's taking my job away? How does it actually free me up to do the work I really want to do based on your book?
Yeah. So the key is that when someone says it's taking my job away, we need to articulate it better than that. We need to understand nobody's job is one thing. It's a set of tasks.
Right.
So the tasks you complete every day, you can label them in a 24-hour period, the recharge tasks, the medium charge tasks, and the high charge tasks. And this is again back to why brain state intelligence is so important.
Exactly.
So it's understanding, well, what are the tasks that I currently do that AI can actually do faster and cheaper than me? But what are the tasks that it can't do where I can add immense value to the business if I can do more of those tasks? And it might be inevitable that some people are displaced, but I heard a good story recently where essentially someone said the best copywriter that I know, this is quite a senior marketing person, has worked for huge advertising agencies. The best copywriter I know is currently driving, takeaway, delivery, we call it in the UK, or Just Eats or whatever. They can't get a job copywriting. But then I know someone else who's gone from being a copywriter to setting up their own agency,
Right.
because they can do 10 times as much work, and their own agency is them doing 10 times more output.
Right.
So there's a mindset shift as well that we need, is that this is not a replacer, it's an amplifier. There's talk now about, who's going to be the first one person, 1 billion turnover business. It's coming, and I believe that.
Right.
I think, 1 billion feels kind of intangible, but I can certainly see businesses that can do multiples of tens of million a year quite easily, just using the tech with the right product. So this actually gives us lots of options about how we can make a living, because we don't need other humans to create a team and a business anymore. We can do it by using these technologies.
Right.
And the other thing right now there is kind of a cost-cutting approach, I think, going on. Businesses are looking to cut costs on wages so they can invest more into AI.
Right.
But also some businesses that are a bit further down the track have recognized, wait a minute, we need our humans, but we don't need any old humans. We need humans who are brain state intelligent. We need humans who can turn up every day and do the high charge, high impact thinking, and they are invaluable. And again, that's why the subtitle to Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, it says how to become irreplaceable using our 4-step system.
Right.
And what businesses are experiencing and continue to experience in a unique way, in a unique period of history, is more complex problems than they've ever experienced before. Starting with, how do we use this technology to make our business better, to make our products better, to make our margins higher, to make our growth faster? How do we help our people to adopt? And what we're seeing now is more and more complex problems. So the world where you could get a job and do that same job for 20, 30, 40 years is dead, because tech has changed the world. So every business is gonna need to keep refining, because their competitive edge, their defendable assets, if you like, are less defendable than ever before. And I would say the primary defendable asset now for any business and for any human being is how well they can get their brain working, and how well businesses can help their people to get their brains working. And again, back to brain state intelligence. Because
Yes.
if we can wake up every day with our brain working really well, and you can pack your team full of people like that in your organization, then you can overcome any challenge and capitalize on any opportunity that's coming your way. If people are just turning up, or you're just turning up in that busy, medium charge, brain fog, brain state, you are going to become highly replaceable.
So let's just take a step back into that as it relates to the book. I know your book has some really great information on that. Take us into a little bit, again, talking to a very broad audience here. Say, how does one do that? Can you provide us with just a little blurb of how that's articulated in the book?
Yeah, so there are 4 core things that we need to focus on. One is we need to understand our brain states. So in the book, we have what we call the human AI brain state readiness assessment.
Right.
So just an assessment we've developed over a lot of years that gives you a sense of how much time you spend in each of those brain states every day. And it gives you a brain state profile. The next step is you need to develop your long-term strategy for yourself.
Right.
Using something we created called the Future Ambitious Meaningful Story. So starting to think about what do you want the distant future to look like? What do you want to have? What do you want to be doing? Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be with? And how does that impact what you need to be focusing on today and tomorrow and this week and this month and the next 6 months and this year? So you've got a clear vision of where you are right now versus where you want to get to. And then we break that down into the next 30 days. And we start to break things down into what we call ice cube tasks that I need to get done in the next 30 days and ice sculpture tasks. So the ice cube tasks are the busy, medium charge things that we do every day. And we've all got a list of those to do.
Right.
And the ice sculptures tasks are the tasks that we use our high charge brain states to work on.
Right.
So we can get through the ice cubes quickly. Building the ice sculptures takes time. And there might be opportunities to use little bits of AI to get the ice cubes frozen faster and to get the ice sculptures built faster. So then we have this clear vision of what do we want to be working on in the next 30 days and why. And then step 3, we need a strategic daily tool to help us get the right focus every day and get the things done that we need to get done. So to make sure that we get through those ice cubes and we make enough progress on the ice sculptures that we're working on. So we have a tool called the willpower story. And then the 4th step is making sure that we actually use the willpower story every day. So we need to have an understanding of how to rewire our habits. So we've got a tool called the habit building plan. So we start by measuring brain states. We then work with what we call the task director to help us to map out our long-term vision in the next 30 days. We then work with the day designer to help us get really good at designing our days so we can optimize how we use our brain states and how we get our ice cubes frozen and our ice sculptures built. And then we work with the routine engineer so that we don't just know what we need to do, we can automate it. And this brings us into the idea of becoming a habit mechanic. And our Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution now acts as book 1. And then the Habit Mechanic is the follow-up book where we go much deeper into all these ideas.
Right.
But what we see is people might be thinking, oh, but I'm so overwhelmed. My brain states are nowhere near where they need to be. We see people can make really great progress in just 30 days. And we've written Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution so you can understand the system in under 3 hours. So you can really go deep into this stuff just in 3 hours and start putting it into practice straight away.
So I love the way that you explain that. And I feel, I have a kind of a head start on this because I've already heard you speak. I've already obviously read the materials and I geek out on this stuff, so to speak. But just again, for the viewer who might say, what on earth, Gina? The way that I'm calling you John, I hope it's okay. The way that John is or Dr. Finn, the way that you're explaining this can really span from being simply a student, right? Planning for your day, for your studies, all the way through to the highest professional out there, right? So this is not just limited. I think the misnomer for many of these things, at least in the research that I conduct and the networks that I'm in, you know, I'm hearing a lot of, oh, this stuff is only for X, or what do I need to know this for? And what I love about how you articulate this and lay this out in the book is that this is applicable to all. And it's one of, right? It may not be for everyone. So I want everyone to be clear here. Jon, Dr. Finn is not sponsoring me. There's no partnership here. It's just that I'm really excited about the materials here, and there's a lot of passion around trying to really share this message, right? To go beneath the surface and share this message so that the macro picture, the holistic picture, can really understand that this is a way, it is a method of many, but it is a great way, in my opinion, to sort of get oneself through this in a very thoughtful manner. And I love how you use the analogy of the ice cubes and the iceberg. And it's not to confuse folks. It's like, you know, what is this guy talking about? It's just, they're just really analogies that go along with the complexities of how things tear up, right? TIER in your thinking and your planning. Did I sort of do that justice?
Yes, although I would say our approach is unique because there's nothing on the planet that is so well grounded in how brains actually work, in why people do what they do, and then having the practical frameworks to actually help people to do better.
Right.
And the heart of our approach is that we want to help people to coach themselves, which doesn't sound very sexy necessarily, but the world is so complex. You know, just getting a good night's sleep in 2025 for many people is very difficult. So you've got to work hard at it. Just eating well is very difficult. So you've got to work hard at it. Just getting a little bit of high charge work done every day is difficult. So you've got to work hard at it. And working hard at everything all the time is not sustainable. So you've got to become your own expert habit coach so you can turn the things that you want, that you know you need to do every day, into habits. So it's automatic. You know, and habits is a misnomer in terms of how it's presented in pop psychology. They're not 60 or 70% of what we think and do. They're most of what we're thinking and doing most of the time. So at least 98%, meaning that for every 50 processes running in your brain right now, that at least 49 are automatic. And the reason that is because brains are designed, their number one operating rule is to conserve energy, because for most of our existence, energy has been a scarce resource. So our brain at every corner tries to save energy, and that's why it automates things, because that's the most energy efficient way to think and do. And it's become easier than ever to develop unhelpful thinking habits like worrying and beating yourself up and not sleeping well, staying up too late, eating the wrong things, consuming the wrong information that makes you feel stressed and worried and anxious, and so on and so forth. So actually what we really need to do is move beyond just knowing what it's a good idea to do, move beyond just having some tips and tricks. We need a system. We need a system that's grounded in neuroscience and behavioral science, and we need to put that system into practice every day. And actually, the best way that we know how to make that stick is that we learn that system in a way that we can teach it to someone else, and we can have a partner that we're working with, on multiple partners. And this is what coaching is. So that's why we think the pinnacle of this is becoming a certified habit mechanic coach, even if you don't want to become a coach in the way you normally think about it. It starts with yourself. You are working on yourself. And the way you work on yourself is the same way you can help your kids or your partner or your direct reports or whoever you want to help. But it starts with doing it yourself. And most coaching is not designed like that. You know, I know many coaches who are lovely people and they're great, but they're frankly all over the place. I don't know how they can, help someone else to thrive in their life. So this is such a great opportunity. And what AI does is, if we get it right, it can help us to remove the biggest barrier for behavior change, which is not enough brain power, not enough cognitive capacity, not enough time. If we get AI right, it frees up our time, it frees up our brain power, it frees up our cognitive capacity, so we can pay attention and work on the things that are most helpful for us, rather than just drowning in busyness.
Right. And just to step back a second, I absolutely understand that this is the only, piece of material out there. And I think it's fantastic and it is unique. I think, again, when I thought about talking to you, it's like, how do we relate to sort of the everyday? And, the other everyday folk is thinking about, well, if they engage in mindfulness or they're journaling or they're planning, right? Like this actually takes that very practical behavior, which this is what I wanted, part of what I wanted to talk to you about as well, but it incorporates it at a much deeper level to really help one to understand how does that work with your brain. And oh, by the way, if you're interested in AI, what does this really mean, right? If AI is in your workplace already, or you're thinking about using it for application in your business. So, just again, trying to level set here for the audience. But I love that was the other thing that you had mentioned quite a few times. And I have read in other publications and been a part of forums talking about habits. And I think we use words a lot, and probably too often interchangeably. But the bottom line about habits or habit forming, that's something that I really wanted you to talk a little bit more about as it relates to this psychology in the book.
Yeah, well, our brain has a set of operating rules. And what we have to realize is that for Homo sapiens, our species have been around for about 300,000 years. It's only in the last 25 years or so we've been able to actually look inside our brains in real time to see what's happening.
Right.
If you go back even 30 years, people were having an ice pick poked about behind their eyes to try to cut some cords in the prefrontal cortex to stop things like epilepsy. I mean, absolutely crazy, but that's what was going on.
Yes.
So what we've been able to do in the last 25 years is look inside in real time the most complex thing in the known universe. Our brain has over 1 trillion moving parts when we get down to the cellular level. But many of the things we've learned about the brain is what we call confirmatory data. So it confirms what we thought we already understood. But there are lots of new insights about brains that are actually the polar opposite to what we thought happened.
Right.
Things as simple as what we now understand as neuroplasticity, even though the word is out there, people I don't think still don't quite understand what that means.
No.
It means your brain is like a big lump of plasticine. That's what plasticity means. It's made up of about 100 billion neurons, and they're like plasticine, and they're changing in accordance with what we pay attention to and what we practice thinking about and what we practice doing. So if we practice worrying and beating ourselves up, we develop lots of neurobiological connections in our brain for just that.
Exactly.
And this idea of nature versus nurture is dead if you look at neuroscience, because we now know about epigenetics. That means that our nature, our DNA, is malleable. It can change in accordance with what we practice.
Right.
And still at school, children are being taught they're either good at something or they're not.
Right.
That is just not true. You may have a set of, and remember, we're being exposed to practice from before we're born.
Right.
So we see lots of data showing that your mother's experience during pregnancy is hugely informative to what you get good at, especially at an emotional level, for better or for worse. We see that babies learn how to smile because they have these things, humans have these things in their brains called mirror neurons, and they see lots of adults hopefully smiling at them, so they smile back and they go, that feels good, I'll do some more of that.
Right.
So, you know, if we think about these, just these, what I would call it's just a broken hypotheses, like David Beckham, if you know who he is, a very famous soccer player,
Right.
married to a Spice Girl called Victoria Beckham, or we call Posh Spice. David Beckham was just born to be a good footballer. Well, David Beckham would have never got good at playing football if he didn't play football, right? So we get good at what we practice, but when we think about practice as physical things like kicking a ball, but practice is also a cognitive exercise, how you think. So that's the first thing. I think we get good at what we practice, and thinking is part of that. But our brain, and the reason that our brain automates things, as I said previously, is because the number one operating rule is to save energy. For most of our existence, energy has been a scarce resource. We're hunter-gatherers. So we went out and we had to find and we had to forage. So getting energy to put inside of our bodies was a very energy-consuming task. Now we have an abundance of energy. We can, you know, we have more food reserves in the Western world, you know, than we need to feed the planet, you know, 1,000 times over. So getting enough energy into our body is not a problem anymore. But our brain is still wired to conserve energy. So it turns everything it can into a habit. And again, it's not just the physical things, it's how we think. So worrying and beating ourselves up. And it's important to understand that the second sort of core operating rule of the brain then is, once you've got enough energy, the next thing your brain pays attention to is survival, the threats, problems, worries. And these are not just like, when I do that, it gets your attention.
Right.
It's not a logical response. You feel it in your gut. It's instantaneous, because there's a threat, there's a problem, there's a worry. But it's not just what I'd call in scientific terms physical violence threats like lions, tigers, and bears. Right. It's also social status threats, like what do other people think about me?
Right.
So our brain is hardwired to be concerned about what other people think about us. So for emotional safety. Now, if you look at something like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it puts emotional safety about 3 or 4 runs up. It's not. It's wired into physical safety. So the parts of our brain that remind us about social status are literally hardwired into the parts of our brain that tell us we are thirsty and we are hungry. So you work backwards and say, well, why is that? Why are we so concerned about what other people think about us? Because we wouldn't survive in the past until very recent history if we weren't in a tribe, in a team of people that were working together every day to survive, to solve complex problems. So if we weren't in the group, we got kicked out, our survival chances went down. Also, we can't pass our genes on if other people don't like us. So we've got these primary drivers of our behavior that are seriously outdated in terms of their utility, you know, most of the time, but they're still driving what we think and what we do. So most of the psychology models that are driving how we how psychologists work and how therapists work and how psychotherapists work, etc., they are based on models. We call them black box models that were designed before we actually understood how brains worked, but they're still the dominant models and they have lots of flaws. So a black box model means you have a hypothesis about how something might work. So you test out that hypothesis, and then you observe the behavior.
Right.
You don't actually look at what goes on inside of the box. In this case, the human brain, and that means that you're experimental design is fundamentally flawed because you can't actually see the mechanics that is driving the outcome of the experiment. Functional MRI scanners and other technologies have allowed us to actually see what is going on inside the brain. But one thing actually that I'm seeing at the moment is we're seeing studies like the one that came out of MIT about ChatGTP, and it's everywhere and it's ill-informed. And it says in the terms that I haven't read the paper, but the way that it's being presented is not very well. So one headline I saw was ChatGTP is changing your brain silently. Well, everything's changing your brain silently. It's not just ChatGTP, right? What about social media? We've had that now for nearly 20 years, right?
Hello.
And then it shows these brain scans. The one brain lit up this way and another brain lit up this way. It's nonsensical, to think in those terms. And this idea of people who use ChatGTP couldn't remember a sentence. What does that even mean? Does it mean that people were plugged into ChatGTP for every millisecond of every 24-hour period for a 3-month solid? Or does it mean they use ChatGTP once a week? What does it mean? Without looking at these things through that lens of how our brain learns and changes, we're not going to get any meaningful insight from those types of studies.
Understand.
The big misnomer with research is that if there's a peer-reviewed paper that says something, it must be true. That is not how research works. What we're looking for, you talk about common sense. Common sense really emerges when you see lots of data points really saying the same thing. And that's what good research is about. Good research is looking for lots of data points from lots of different research methodologies, both qualitative and quantitative, that all point towards the same answer. And you go, yeah, that then makes sense. So I feel like I've gone off on some sort of tangent here, but
no, we're
essentially
good.
the short thing to understand is that most of the things that we're being taught about how to be our best are fundamentally flawed because they're not designed with the brain in mind. And the best parallel I can understand, and it's actually how I began my career, is sports science. So up until about 30 years ago, the way that the athletes were physically conditioning themselves was really well intended, and some of it was good, but it wasn't designed with how the body actually worked in mind. So it wasn't designed on physiological science. How does blood work? How do muscles adapt? How do lungs adapt? What role does oxygen play? And then we brought sports science in, the science of sport, the science of physiological conditioning, and we can see the impact now very clearly in professional sport. The athletes today are seismically fitter and stronger and faster than they were 30 years ago. It's still the same human DNA. It's just they've been conditioned in a highly tuned, highly scientific way. What we're trying to do with Tougher Minds and the Habit Mechanic and Train Your Brain for Their Revolution is bring that same science, but to cognitive performance. And mental health and performance, cognitive performance, are on a continuum, and they're often not thought of in those ways. But the reason that people are mentally not well is because they're not managing their brain states well. The reason that people are cognitively high performers or high performers is because they're managing their brain states well. So we're trying to demystify what feels like a really complex thing. And it is in some ways, but in other ways it's not. And that's been my mission for the last 25 years. And I actually think that AI can help us to accelerate this, because AI forces us to do something differently. We've got to adapt. But if we get it right, it can actually unlock the kind of lives that we all desire, where we can spend time recharging, downtime. We can get rid of great swaths of that medium charge, busy work that we don't enjoy doing. It just bogs us down. And we can free up our brain to actually work on those things that make us feel good about ourselves. And then it becomes a positive cycle.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. I really, yeah, I think this is, I know it's been very, very helpful for me and very eye-opening. And again, why I was so passionate. And I'm so grateful that you agreed to sort of spread this information, spread the word, so to speak, because I think it's important that people know from all walks of life, right?
Yeah, this is the first step, and I think now more than ever, people are prepared and primed to think about how they think. But I think we have to. I mean, we don't teach children about this at school. We have education programs where we do that, and we're just actually working on a new program where parents can. It's a digital interface that parents can use to get their kids doing this stuff. But no one's taught about this stuff formally. People have picked up a bit of self-help here and a bit of self-help there.
Right.
But we think that now, again, I've said this multiple times, but it's key. I say this in the foreword of the Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution. I believe that brain state intelligence is going to become the most important thing for humanity in terms of driving their health, their happiness, and their performance. And from a business perspective, we're starting to work with businesses in almost like a Lean Sigma 6 way.
Right.
We've created a belted training system so that you can progress everyone in the business from a white belt through to a black belt in terms of learning this stuff. And we have digital tools where you can practice this stuff every single day in a way that makes it easier for you to not only understand your brain states, but improve them. At the individual level, we're just really encouraging people, whether you want to become a professional coach or not, to become a certified habit mechanic coach, because it's not just reading the book or doing a course. You need deep mastery of these things in order to put them into practice every day. And then, yeah, we want to spread this to help children as well. I think where we need to get the balance right with young people is that they need to get good at practicing, I think, the traditional way of learning without it being supercharged by AI necessarily. So you've got to have that right balance of, focused study with pen and paper.
Exactly.
And develop those foundational skills. And then they're going to be in a much better position to get lots out of the AI tools as and when it's available to them. And people are still working that out. But we've been teaching young children from, say, the ages of 9, 10, this for a long time. And it's so powerful, so powerful. And technology helps us, obviously, to scale that. So we've actually created a similar belt structure for young children. So from white belt through to black belt, where they can actually learn brain state intelligence, but through in a way that's connected to what they're studying at school. So yeah, I think this is a really exciting period of history if we get the brain state intelligence stuff right.
Yes, absolutely. One thing I'm just dying to say, and it may not be popular, but it's sort of leaked out a little bit here and there in some articles that I've read. The misnomer is that people actually need to think about what it is they're trying to either accomplish or say or create when they engage in whatever AI model. So where, yes, AI does some really miraculous, tremendous things, right? From the day-to-day task to helping one create roadmaps and things of this nature. You, a person, literally needs to come to the table, so to speak, and think about what it is. So if one does not think about that in their brain, or they don't have the idea, there's that disconnect there, and people are starting to courageously talk about the disconnect, because you can't just sit down and press on a couple of keys regardless of whatever agentic or LLM or whatever model of AI you're using, and expect a miracle. I mean, a person really has to come to the table thinking about what it is they want to do.
Yeah, it's
I don't know. I get passionate about these things.
Yeah, whether you want to set up great agentic workflows to outsource your medium charge work, or you want to co-work with LLMs, large language models, to
Right.
go faster on your high charge tasks, it takes high charge brain power. And the AI, and I think there's a really interesting conversation going on right now where there is the tech companies are saying, we don't understand why it looks like it's conscious, because it's not conscious. But my insight on that is it's because you misunderstand what consciousness is. Most of what most people do most of the time is not conscious. It might look conscious, but it's not. Some would argue that we're never conscious, which is quite, I think, an
Exactly.
extreme argument, but I get the point. There's a
Right.
tiny bit of consciousness. You know, look at Daniel Kahneman's work, and he shows that you will get an additional X years in prison, depending on how hot the courtroom is. So these are judges who are being silently
Right.
influenced by by how uncomfortable they feel, basically.
Wow.
So the AI, it can't understand your context. It can't understand in real time what you're seeing in your environment, what you're experiencing, and all of the knowledge you've accumulated over the course of your life. So it's a tool. It's not a magic solution. And the tool will only be as good as your high charge brain states. You know, when it comes to your personal life, how you're using your personal life and your personal workflows, it needs
Right.
context. And I don't see it anytime soon getting really good at being able to do what an experienced human can do. And you say, well, what about younger people? Well, that's interesting, isn't it? And I think that, like everything else, humans will find a way to solve that issue of how do we help young people then if they're not going to be doing the things they traditionally did. Well, we'll have to help them to do something else. You know, maybe they become the coaches for younger versions of themselves, whatever it is. And I see that emerging. I write about this in one of the last chapters of Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution. I see
Right.
3 core roles emerging, but they all require high charge brain states. One is there'll be a group of people, and there'll be sub roles, but I think there'll be 3 dominant roles going into the future. One is the innovators, people who are just thinking about the next problem we need to solve, the
Right.
next drug. How do we make education actually work for people? How do we create buildings that absorb CO2 instead of kicking it out? How do we get electric cars or whatever's good for the environment actually working? Just these endless problems that we need to solve. Just there'll be a group of people who are just working on that. The second
Right.
group will be the automators. They'll be the engineers who are saying, okay, well, how do we make that a reality? By creating AI that can supercharge that hardware, software, and they'll be spending all their day automating and making the innovators' visions a reality. The third group will be what I call the human AI coaches. So we've created the new field of human AI performance psychology. We've innovated that ourselves. I think that will become the dominant form of psychology. That is humans understanding how to use their brain and work with AI to supercharge their health, their happiness, their performance. So we're going to need human AI coaches, or what I would call habit mechanic coaches, working with the innovators and the automators to make sure they can turn up every day and get into those high charge brain states and not only work really well with the AI they're working with, but do the kind of thinking that AI can't. How quickly we'll get there, I don't know, but I've been in the public domain talking about AI since January, and all the things that I read about that were going to be happening maybe in 5 years, or most of those things, they're already happening, on everything from the level of investment to usage,
Right.
to the capabilities of the tech. Like all tech, it's just going much faster than anyone thought. If anyone thinks this is the millennium bug, I guarantee you it is not. But I haven't taken an AI course. I haven't read any AI books. I've just used the tools and just played with them. And that's the power of this technology. It doesn't actually come with a how to use it guide. You just use it like a human being. That's what it's designed. Or you work with it like you would work with a human. So yeah, I think it's endlessly fascinating and exciting if we get brain state intelligence right.
Well, I think that was just well said. Thank you so much. I mean, I could probably talk to you for a few days straight. That would
to recharge our brains.
We'd have to recharge our brains, yes. But this is just fantastic stuff, and I'm really looking forward to diving in deeper, so to speak, and learning more about it. And I think it's something that's really, really important to just kind of educate as many people, get the word out there, so to speak, especially as you say, our younger people. There's a deep passion for that, and I won't say any more about that, but I think it's important for them as well.
Yeah, for sure. This is going to affect everybody.
Yes. Well, thank you, Dr. Finn, appropriately, for coming on and being our first international guest on Beneath the Surface. It just occurred to me that you are not in the US, so this is really fantastic. I'm excited about that and the material. And I'm looking forward to keeping in touch with you and your materials. And I think we're going to get a lot of feedback here. So I'm just kind of excited to see what that brings forward for us collectively.
Yeah, well, if people are interested in learning more, we've made the ebook available via our website for $1. We give you a performance planner as well, and there's some other bits little courses and things we've put together. We're really making it as easy as possible also for people to become certified coaches. And again, don't think of it as setting up a coaching business. You can do that if you want to. We have loads of people that have done that with our training, but just for your own sake, learning how to get a deep mastery of these skills. So we're periodically giving away training grants, where we're giving a huge subsidy for the normal costs of our certified habit mechanic coach certification. So if that's of interest, let us know. And then we have a podcast, The Habit Mechanic. We're always talking about what we do. But if you've found it interesting, do get in touch, because we're interested to hear what you think. Read the book. We've got The Habit Mechanic as well, which goes much deeper into how to build different habits in different areas of your life, from individual level to team to leadership. We're looking forward to getting our brain state intelligence training up and running in businesses, and we're just starting to do that now with a number of different businesses. And then, we're looking forward. Just this weekend, our student, child version, we've created a partnership with someone called Blast Learning, and that's going to be available. So where parents can actually, it's a bit like, Netflix, where you log onto an account and you can sort of see what your kid's doing, but the kids can access the same kind of learnings that the parents can in the habit mechanic system. So that's exciting as well.
Excellent.
So thank you so much for having me, and I hope it was interesting and it's got you thinking at least. Yeah,
absolutely. And we will share, like I do for all my guests, the resources, etc., so they are easily available for the folks who our audience, so to speak. So thank you again, Dr. Finn. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to the future. It's coming very quickly. It's here.
Yeah, thank you, Gina. Really appreciate it.
He says it's a long way down, back to the bottom.